Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm Wormhole and this is the Wormhole. This week we're taking a look at a game called Wildstar. It's brought to you by developers Carbine Studios, which is made up of some former World of Warcraft developers, and it's published by NCSoft, who obviously are fairly well known in the massive multiplayer genre. This is a game that's only releasing on June 3rd, so we're taking a look right now at the pre-order beta access weekends. This is something I've actually played a good number of hours on already throughout the actual closed beta, as well as the pre-order weekend business. And we're going to give you a quick overview as to what's going on here. Now, currently this is still very much a beta, so there is some issues with optimization, and there have been tweaks pretty much on almost every weekend. There's been some major changes. But we'll take a quick look at a couple things. First things first, though, let's talk about what makes this game pretty much unique. That's mostly to do with the way that their combat system is set up. They use a system called telegraphs, which is basically, you see this little outline here that shows you where my attack will actually hit, and if I use that, it goes off right away, and I can do it while moving and all that kind of stuff. Anything in that area will actually be hit regardless of how many enemies there are. I believe it's up to a limit of like 5 per shot. Yeah, as you can see in the bottom right there, deals damage to up to 5 enemies. So there is a limit on that, and each of these have different kind of areas and different effects. The ones that have that kind of diagonal slash means it's going to go off right away and does damage more over time. So if I use that here, you can see as it filled in that circle, it's actually radiating out the damage already, whereas this first one starts empty and then it kind of fills in. Same thing for that. Some abilities do have cast times, so there are some impacts there. And for example, I can use this as just a heal, so that only goes off when it's full. That's why it's kind of an empty square that fills in, compared to these ones that are diagonal lines showing that it's actively doing stuff, and it's more of a channel duration. So it makes the game pretty interesting. The other thing is the art style. It is very reminiscent of something like World of Warcraft. That's mostly because it's a very cartoony animated style. I personally find it reminds me a lot more of something like Ratchet and Clank, if you've ever played the Ratchet and Clank games by Insomniac. It's got a very similar exaggerated style to it. The art is kind of similar, and the overall kind of aesthetic of the world being kind of a future sci-fi rather than a pure fantasy game, it does fit a little bit more in my mind with that. So while I'm talking, I'm just going to start killing some stuff over here. So this thing here is just as you can see in the left there, it's a settler resource. You have a number of different paths to go along with your classes. So you have your class, obviously, as you do in pretty much every MMO or a lot of RPGs. And your class basically determines some of your basic skills that you have, but it doesn't actually give you everything. You also have a path, which gives you more dedicated content to the type of play that you actually enjoy. And currently there's 4 paths. You have the Explorer, which is focused on a lot of platforming, races, finding new areas, planting flags, discovering hidden objects. You have the Settler, which is what I'm currently playing as, that focuses on supporting the friendly teams, basically, so you can actually build things at certain locations and create like buff stations or bonus XP, or even in some cases build new areas to quest in. Oop, that's an enemy telegraph, so I need to get out of the way there. So enemies along with allies do have these telegraphs, and you can actually change a fair amount of things in the settings for which ones display, so you don't have to necessarily see all of your allies' telegraphs, since it can make very busy combat. And so, yes, so as I was saying, you have the Settler, builds things. You have the Soldier, which focuses on more combat, so they have holdouts, which are basically wave defense missions as well as assassination missions. They've got a little bit of experimental weaponries that kind of go off as well, so they can explore and find these cool little special grenades or rocket launchers and things that they have to use on enemies. And the last one's the Scientist. That's kind of the lore-based role, so you can actually scan enemies and environmental objects, which then get you some little extra lore and sometimes can impact the way the fights work, such as giving a buff to fight that enemy, or something where you can actually remove the enemy's shields. As a settler, you can also put little kind of decorations around the maps. They're not permanent, they only stay for a short amount of time. And so those are the 4 paths. They're all pretty varied, and I've tried most of them. I actually haven't tried the scientist yet myself, but you do really have a feel that the gameplay works out pretty differently as a result of which class you take. The main focus, of course, is about the same. That's more your class. Kill. But your path affects a lot more about what kind of special content you can do. And there's a lot of interactions around in the world, and you level up and get little bonuses. So let's talk about the level up system really quick since I just brought that up. This is you have this limited action set is what they're calling it, where you have only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You have 8 class abilities that you can have active at a time. Obviously there's a lot more than that that you get at leveling up. So you slot those on. So for example, I want to take out Restrictor and I can add Gamma Rays instead. I can do that anytime I'm not currently in combat. If you're in combat, you're locked in with what you have. You also, as you level up, get these ability points, which let you basically boost or decrease your skills. So here you can put points into them depending on your level. It limits to which ones you have. So for example, at level 15 I'll be able to get the next tier here, so I can redistribute my points to match that. But if, say, I want to boost Restrictor here, which in this case will get me a slightly longer field duration or better snare, I can drop my Surge for that. This is a stun, but I prefer my stun, so you have a little bit of variety there. You also do have path abilities. That's what this last ability is here, and you get a variety of those as you level up your path, which does level up independently of your class. So for example, I can slot this in, which will let me summon an ability kiosk, which I might actually do right now. I want to use this set, so summon an ability kiosk, and this way I can buy my skills without having to actually go anywhere. So that does use a cooldown obviously in this case, so I can't actually swap this again right away. The other thing that you do have is amps. Network messages. I've been having this a couple. Hey guys, we're back. So unfortunately they've been having some issues with the server during this weekend where it's been kicking people off occasionally. So, but we will persevere, we will get through this, and we will finish up this video. So, yes, what I was about to say is you have the system called the AMP system. This is, the closest to describe would be that this is essentially your talents in a sense. So you have the individual points that you can dump on here which improve your skills. This improves your overall character. So you can get points that give you strike through, for example, which breaks through, mitigates some armor and that kind of thing. You have critical hit chance. If you go with the support tree, you get things like increasing focus, which is your heal abilities, your support power, which affects how much healing you do, and so on. So you can kind of spread those out, and as you tier up in these, you actually unlock the next ranks and that kind of thing. So there are some costs. You do also have to find these later orbs through finding them out in the world, quest rewards, and that kind of thing. So you do have a lot of kind of customization to this. On top of all of that, you can also, in your character sheet, which I can never remember what the hotkey is for some reason, it's not C as you'd expect, you do have costumes, so you can actually go and toggle on different outfits basically. So if I wanted to, I could actually hide my equipment and, you know, swap in different pieces. You can actually put in gear that's in your backpack on the different slots and use those instead. So you have quite a little bit of variety, and right out the gate you do have the ability to do a lot of customization for things. You have titles as well. So this game's got me excited, mostly because of the PvP. This is one of the few MMOs I'm actually considering playing on a PvP server. Ow. I want to get out of that. The reason being that it's a two-faction system, similar to World of Warcraft, as I mentioned earlier, but the main reason that it kind of interests me for that is that this telegraph system means that the PvP will kind of inherently be a little bit more fair, I feel. We'll have to see how that plays out with a lot of latency and stuff like that in large matches, but in general, if the enemy's attacking, you can see it happening and you can stand out of the way and avoid their abilities a bit more if you know their skills. So that's kind of an interesting thing, and it kind of appeals me a lot. I don't really like the kind of more standard combat in terms of PvP. And they're going to have rated PvP, so battlegrounds, arenas, similar to World of Warcraft once again. But they also have this interesting feature called war plots, which unfortunately I can't show you right now. But that involves the two teams. So you have an organized team that's working together, usually something maybe within a guild or that kind of thing, and you actually build a base. So you get to customize and build a base similar to the housing that is going to be, that I'll be showing you a little bit later on. Oop, frame rate dropping drastically there. And so once you've built your base, your team is matched to someone else, and you go to town trying to destroy each other's bases. So you can actually put in turrets and tanks and all that kind of stuff. So there's a little bit of variety in what you can kind of do, and it makes for an interesting concept of that, and it's a little bit more dynamic and fluid compared to typical like team-based combats. The housing system is actually one that I'm not super thrilled with right now. Admittedly, I haven't tried them all, and apparently some of them do work differently. But currently I am an architect, which, let me find where my thing is here. Oh, I have to be at a crafting station, of course. It works in kind of like almost a hot-cold kind of system. You have a grid with an X and a Y axis. The thing that you choose to craft is on a spot somewhere, and then you have to use different abilities that will move your cursors one way or the other. So you are kind of altering what direction your skills will kind of make it go into, but you're not really crafting it in the same sense as in a lot of games. That kind of so far hasn't really appealed to me. I haven't tried the more traditional crafting. Apparently that's more specific to the kind of side crafting skills, so the weapon crafting works a bit differently than that. But I can't confirm that myself, unfortunately. This area is kind of hammering away at my frame rate pretty badly. So this is a game that is also designed to be a bit more difficult. They want it to be a bit more unforgiving because you can dodge out of the way of attacks. Most enemies will actually hit you very hard, and if you don't get out of the way of those big telegraphs, you will die very fast. Which is kind of an interesting idea. Very few MMOs have been kind of willing to go that route lately. It's usually a little bit more play it safe and cater to the casuals. This game is pointedly making a point of saying that they aren't going for the casual market. We'll see if they end up holding to that once the game releases, if they end up doing a lot of nerfs or what have you, but so far it seems to be true. Along with that, they're actually doing something that I personally feel is a mistake, which is to cater to the more hardcore market in terms of raiding. They're going to have 20 and 40 man raiding. There is no 10 mans. They obviously do have 5 man dungeons, of course, but they don't have any 10 man content, so you need at least 20 people to be able to actually raid in this game, which I personally feel is a mistake. It's a bit too much. 20 man raiding is not very popular even currently in something like WoW. Again, they're not going for the WoW market specifically, but I feel like segregating all those players to only 5 man content is not necessarily the greatest way of doing it, but we'll see how it actually ends up playing out at release.
Double kill.
40 man is an extreme raid content that is not normally seen in most games. They don't use the same raids either, so it's not just buffing it up, it's a separate raid system. They are saying that you're not guaranteed to be able to access all the content simply because you're playing the game, so they want people to actually have to organize and try to get to certain content. They've got raid lockouts and all that kind of stuff. So despite the fact that I'm looking forward to this for the PvP, I don't see myself doing raiding in this. I might try it a little bit, but I don't have the time or the schedule to try and put up with 20 or 40 people all having to be organized together. So we'll see how that actually does work out in the end. The game also has the negative of having a subscription fee. I personally don't mind that, but it's a huge turnoff for a lot of people. So you do have to buy the game outright, as well as then having to pay per month for it. It is the normal $15 a month currently. You do get the standard discount if you pay for multiple months at a time, as is standard in the MMO industry.
Challenge begins.
You get these cool little challenges too as you're doing certain things. So now if I kill Razorbeak Ravenox, sorry, then I will be completing a challenge. I actually don't see any other ones around here, so that might have kind of been hard for me to do. But you do have different medals, so as you do things, you'll actually get different grades and different rewards, and if I complete it, then I'll get a little loot chest. If you don't, you can actually come back and restart it once you've discovered them, so that's kind of a nice feature. Gives you a little bit something extra to do in an air zone while you're doing questing, which obviously I'm not really paying attention to my quests right now because I'm just kind of talking and killing stuff. The stun mechanic is interesting too. Most classes have stuns, or I think all classes do, or can have a stun, since again you might not choose to not use it. But if an enemy is doing a telegraph and you use a stun, you will actually interrupt them and their health bar will go purple, which you might have seen earlier when I did it to one of the previous enemies. While it's purple, they actually take bonus damage from all attacks, not just you. So in raids, it's incredibly important to interrupt and coordinate your stuns with people. The catch for that, if I can do it now, no, my stun's on cooldown still. The catch for that is that bosses can also be stunned. They didn't want to remove the ability to use stuns on bosses, or any CC really, but the bosses have what they're calling interrupt armor. So that's essentially immunity to stuns, but only up to a certain number. So for a short duration after you activate a stun ability, if other people do their own stuns, they will actually reduce that armor even further. And once you break the armor, the next stun will actually stun the boss, which is pretty cool. I like how I'm leaving the area here. No, okay, so this way is fine. So there you go, I just stunned the guy, his health was purple, and he was taking more damage than usual. So, that is kind of the main gist of the combat system. Each class actually has different resources, like the medic, I have these little actuators here that I can build up using my basic spam attack, and I use them on larger attacks. This drains depending on how often it ticks and that kind of thing. This is a little discovery, so I just found an enhancement field generator. So that has just given me a buff, which increases my shield capacity, so that's kind of neat. So there's a lot of little hidden things around the world sometimes, and the downside to it is that unlike something like World of Warcraft, it's not phased, so if you see a crafting material, anyone can grab it. So you may actually lose your ability to mine something if someone else gets to it first and that kind of thing, so there's a little bit of more competition for that. Resources do seem to be pretty plentiful though, so that's not a huge concern of mine right now. It might be a little bit hectic at the release of the game, but down the line I don't really see it being much of a problem. So that's the kind of the gist of the major stuff to talk about. Let me go back to my house here and I'll show you the housing. So everyone does have a kind of quote-unquote Hearthstone to recall to wherever they are bound to currently, which in my case is the capital city for the exiles in this area. And you can go back to your housing once you do unlock the house. So you unlock housing about level 14 if I'm not mistaken. And it's pretty open for customization. It's kind of neat. It's actually one of the reasons I chose Architect for my trade skill, was because I wanted to see how that actually works out and have a little bit more options within my house. So once this loads in, here we go. So this is my house here. Yes, I know I failed the reward, obviously I left the area. So this is my house. Now, you might be looking at it and thinking, alright, well it looks fairly standard, but there's a few things that are kind of interesting here. So each day you can actually come to this housing buff board and get a buff of something. So in this case I can choose between a 10% group adventure dungeon and adventure bonus, a 5% player versus player bonus, or a 5% questing and hunting bonus. Obviously, depending on the type of content you're focused on doing, these cater more or less to you, so I'm going to go with the XP bonus. And so this is my house here. So I have a couple options down the bottom, which is to landscape, house, crate, and vendor. So vendor allows me to buy extra things to place around here, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But if you look at the landscape, you have this is the basic plot. So right now I only have a standard house size. And you can kind of change what type of house you have. So these are all the different options here. And if I actually had the money for it, I could, in theory, add these and look at those. And in the individual housing slots here, so in a one by one plot, you can build different things. So right now I could build a vacant lot for some reason. That's what it already is, but I could put one there. Oh, okay, I get it now. So placing a vacant lot allows you to place decor. That was actually answers one of the questions I didn't really understand about the way this was set up, which I'll go over in a second. So currently, for example, I have a thicket tier 1, which needs repair apparently. Huh, interesting. I did not know that I had to do that. That's never come up before. In this spot I have the Shardspire Canyon, which is this big thing over here, and then over here I have a barbecue pit, which also needs repair. I don't really know what broke that, since that never really came up before. For your house, you can change finishing touches and features, so you can change your sky if you want. So if I wanted to, I could put fireworks sky, which as you can see, it changes in real time there. I could put Happy Land sky. Ah, so happy. Very happy. A little rainbow. They're not all dark either. Some of them are like the default sky is also a night sky. Let me try and find a data one. Ooh, World Destroyer. Look at that. It's pretty intense. You got a meteor about to crash into my house apparently. You can be underwater. Does add little bubble effects all over the place as well, so it's pretty neat. There's a lot of variety to that. You can change the look of the door of your house. Let me just put this back to cancel that. You can change the look of your house, your steps for your house here, the roof of your house. You can change the door, and you can change the walls. So a good amount of variety on there. At my little barbecue over here, and this is a crafting station, so I can use that for cooking. You used to actually be able to use these for other things, and it looks like I still can, so I can maybe show you some architect work here. Schematics. Okay, let's go to architecture. So, yeah, hide the tutorial. So this is the crafting thing that I mentioned earlier. This is what I was talking about, the hot and cold. So these are the different things that I can craft. So this right now is all I can make. This is locked. So if I click this, I can see how to unlock it, which shows me the different things. And as you kind of craft certain numbers of things, you'll unlock new versions and so on. So if I start to craft, this is the kind of hot and cold mechanic. So you have to kind of aim yourself to get onto the objects that you want to craft. So now I'm over here. So if I go down, one of these should be down. Or not. Okay, so I'll go this way, and then I go down, and now I'm on it. There you go. Each time you add something, it does cost money, so the less moves that you can do, the better. So I just made some bushes, which works out well, since now I can show you those bushes. So let me pull up my inventory, add that to my house. And now I can look at my owned items, and I've got this bush that I just crafted here. So, and if I right click, I can see it here. You can freely drag this around. This is what the vacant lot was for, is that I can't put it outside of this area right now. If you build a vacant lot, it looks like you'd be able to place it in that area as well. So you do have a little bit of variety here. You can rotate things freely. You also have prop options, like you can create children things. You can change the size of everything. Certain objects you can also change the axis they're on, put them sideways. This, for example, I can actually put on walls if I so desire. So there's a lot of freedom with the way that you want to do your crafting, and just place that down there. So now I've got a bush. So this is all stuff that I've placed myself. Even this tree here is something that I placed. It looks like there's a broken icon actually. This is the right click allows you to edit things, so that looks like it's missing the icon right now for the hover over. So this little lamp here as well is something I placed. And this is my, I guess, broken crafting station right now. So if I repair that, I could actually come here and harvest materials each day for my survivalist skills. And we'll just go inside my house real quick. So again, inside is all customized. None of this is here by default. This as well is something that I put. And the carpet here, carpet you can change the height, so you can change if it's visible on everything or down. It does clip through your feet if it is all the way down though. And so, pretty cool little house. And again, you can change the walls, the ceiling, the floor, everything. The carpet itself is actually an item, so there's the floor underneath, which is this right now, that you can change as well. And they also add some cool stuff that you can collect out in the world through pre-made prefab kits. So for example, I have this is built here. Ooh, what's this? Talk to plushie.
Challenge begins.
So this gives me a challenge where now if I climb to the top of this spire, I will get to complete this challenge. I've tried this before and I wasn't able to do it because at a certain point I can't figure out where I'm supposed to go. Where? Jump up here. You gotta be careful because you do slide when you're standing on things, and there we go. So this glow that's around me, this is something actually in the world that you encounter pretty frequently in certain areas. It's called Loftite. It allows you to kind of defy gravity. You take no falling damage and that kind of thing. So I'm just going to leave that there. And that's basically the overview of how this kind of all works. It's pretty interesting. I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Challenge failed.
Yes, challenge failed. Thank you. So you have a lot of variety, a lot of customization, some really neat stuff. The loading times are a little bit not great, and there's some frame rate issues and stuff right now, although this weekend has not been so bad compared to previous. And I'm very much looking forward to playing this. The paths are a really cool idea. It doesn't change a ton, but it does give you a little bit of different content, and kind of some of them interact well together. For example, Scientist opens new doors, as does the Soldier sometimes to blow them down. So there's a little bit of cool stuff you can do. Same thing with the Settler, interacts with certain objects, which sometimes changes the way things work. So I just reactivated this mining bot, and now if there was a Scientist, he'd be able to scan it to return it to its mining functions, and then it would actually give some mining ore and resources. So there's a lot of nice interactivity. You need a friend to be able to do all that, so there's some cool stuff to encourage you to group up with people. You don't really compete either for kills or anything like that, as is pretty typical in most MMOs these days. It all works pretty fluidly together, and you don't have a lot of penalties or anything from those, so it's very cool. You got your typical bag stuff. You have you have a separate bag for crafting, which is this bag here. So all your crafting resources fill in here until you hit a max stack, and then it starts overflowing to your other regular bag. And yeah, that's kind of the overview for Wildstar for the time being. So as I mentioned earlier, it comes out on June 3rd. Definitely check it out. If you pre-order right now, you actually get into a number of beta weekends, as well as getting a head start bonus. If you're into MMOs, I recommend trying to check it out if you can. Don't necessarily pre-order just for the sake of trying it, of course. I don't necessarily think that's a very good idea. But enough people that I know that have been kind of getting tired of MMOs lately have been really latching onto the ideas and some of the cool concepts that they've added in here. It doesn't depart drastically from the standard hotbar-based theme park MMO, but there's just enough things that are being done differently that it feels like a fairly different experience to me and a lot of the people I've talked to about it. There are some people that say it's too much like World of Warcraft still. I personally disagree, but long-term, who knows, it may end up starting to feel stale as well. But that's something that I can't really predict right now, and only time will tell. So that's it for this time. Until next time, you can check us out on Twitter at WormHoleGaming, or on Facebook at facebook.com/WormHoleGaming. Feel free to like and share this video if it was something you're interested in, and hopefully we'll see you on Nexus. Take care. Wormhole heading out. Okay, wow, that's quite a step up in difficulty from the first level.